It is February 6, 2020, and we're here at City Hall at 558 City Hall at 116 West Bridge Street, Granbury, Texas, and the Granbury City Council special meeting is now called to order. At this time, since we do have a deliberation agenda item here, we'll have public comments on these agenda items. The speakers have a time limit of 3 minutes allotted at this time for comments regarding items that are on the agenda. We do have one speaker. We have Richard Hess.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Richard Hafes. I live at 428 Riverbank Lane here in Granbury. I want to thank the council for taking this forward-looking view of planning for the future of our city. Granbury is a special place, and that's built on the foundation of the councils that have come before you, planning for the city and planning for the growth. We're a fast-growing city and a wonderful place to live, and the proceeds of these obligation bonds will enhance the recreational aspects of our city, the tourism, and the public safety. So I encourage your support in adopting this measure. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Thanks, Richard.
Is there anybody else in the public that wish to make comments at this time? Hearing none, we'll move on to the deliberation agenda item here. The deliberation agenda item is to consider all matters incident and related to the assurance and the sale of the City of Granbury, Texas Combination Tax and Revenue Certificates of Obligation Series 2020, including the adoption of Ordinance number 2013 authorizing the assurance of such certification of obligation. Certificates of obligation, I'm sorry. So with that, I am going to turn it over to our Assistant City Manager, Michael Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. I will effectively turn it over to Ava Gregory. Thank you, Ava.
Good job, Michael.
Working all day on that.
Working too hard.
You're going to have to speak more.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Assistant City Manager. I wanted to go ahead and give you some background on the Certificate of Obligations we are issuing. On December 3rd, you were updated and presented some projects that were needed to be addressed with this certification. And on December 17th, you approved the publication of a notice of intention to issue these COs. At that time, you were presented with a calendar of events that has to take place for these bonds to be issued. And the bonds were proposed to be issued for the construction of a new police station, the construction and renovation of park and recreation facilities, as well as construction of street projects. After the intent of issuance was advertised in the paper twice, we literally hit the ground running and started working on all the required steps that had to take place before the bond could be issued. At that point, we worked with the financial advisors, the bond counsel, and prepared the official statement. We also have scheduled phone calls with conference calls with the rating agencies, with S&P and Fitch, as well as the attorneys for the underwriters. So those 3 calls took place last week. We prepared an extensive response to their questionnaires. I'm happy to tell you that both Fitch and S&P has they confirmed our rating, our AA rating, and this rating is a very high rating. It's actually qualified as a high-grade rating that allows us to sell our bonds at the best interest rates available at the market. And so with that, I would like to, well, let me add something else. In December, when you were presented the analysis, we presented you a proposed interest rate, that projected interest rate of 3.5%. Today, when the bonds were priced, the interest rate was actually at 2.5%, which is a savings of about $2 million of future interest that the city will have to pay in bond interest. And the city is actually going to be issuing less than $16.5 million and will receive $19 million in project funds because the market wanted our bonds and paid premiums for that. But I will let Joey Durker, he's with Hilltop, our financial advisor, and Michael Martin to give you a little bit more detail about the report that you just received.
Now, if we'd have had a full house, we would have heard a big round of applause, I'm sure, on that statement she just made. That is great. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening. I'm Joey Durker with Hilltop Securities, here with my partner, Michael Martin. We're here on behalf of John Martin, who is down with something like the flu. Apparently it's not the flu, but it's flu-like, and we're all glad that he's not with us because we don't want it.
The coronavirus?
Well, I hope not.
Hope not.
Hope not.
I have little to add, but we can kind of go through this presentation, just point out a few things. Behind tab B are the two rating reports from S&P and from Fitch. Like Ava said, they affirm the city's AA rating. I encourage you to read through them because they both say a lot of complimentary things about the city and your management thereof. There's a blue tab behind the rating reports with the bond buyers index. It looks kind of like an eye test chart. This is an index of municipal bonds that acts for municipal bonds like the Dow Jones Industrial Averages for stocks, just so you can kind of see where the market's going. And as you can see on the far right-hand side, the lowest number on the whole page, 247, is the current week's benchmark rate. And if you flip over, you can see that graphically. As I was telling Mr. Mobley, we had to move the y-axis lower to accommodate the chart. So we can give Ava credit for this. You have picked the best time in the last 50 years to sell bonds. And finally, behind tab C are the numbers. As Ava mentioned, we're issuing $16.46 million worth of bonds. That's going to provide $19 million for projects and keep the tax rate down. True interest cost of 2.5%, going out to 2040, so not bad. Behind tab D is the official statement, which is the offering document that the underwriters put out to the market. That has a lot of facts and figures about the city as well. That's worth looking through. And then finally, behind tab E, not to put words in anybody's mouth, is a suggested form of motion. And we are happy to answer any questions that you have.
Council, you got any questions for these folks or Ava or the staff?
I have one.
Mr. Wadley.
On under tab C, and Ava said this, I just don't understand. I don't need an in-detail explanation, but how do we issue $16 million and get 19?
So if you'll flip 2 pages back to the bond production report, looks like this. Shows how the bonds were priced. So the headline number, 2.5%, that's our true interest cost. The way that is calculated is the interest rates and yields. So rates are what you're going to pay, and the yield is what the investor gets. That difference comes to $2.825 million. That covers not only cost of issuance and underwriter's discount, but it reduces the amount that you have to borrow. So you're paying back the 16.4, and you're getting the 19 for projects. Does that make sense?
If I could do that at my house, it'd be great.
Yes.
Maybe we need Ava to come out there and help you there.
Mr. Mayor,
Dr. Mobley.
so to break this down, it's basically like when you see at a tire store when they're saying, buy 3 tires, get 1 free. That's basically what we're doing.
Right.
Am I right? Okay, so it's about a 15% gimme on what we're borrowing. So basically, since we're in the state of Texas, it's a safe state to invest in because of the state statutes require that cities pay their debt before they pay their people, and folks know that. So basically, investors will invest here in the state of Texas and the city of Granbury before unnamed states that may have different political stances because they know they're going to get their money back. Therefore, they're willing to invest the money and get a less interest rate just for safety. Am I correct? Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Council, any more comments or questions for these folks? Michael, you want to add anything to that?
Chris did just want to thank council for allowing the city to reap this historical harvest, and this is going to pay great dividends for the future.
I agree.
Thank you.
You worked all day on that part.
Oh, yes.
So thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Well, hearing nothing else, Council, I'll entertain a motion then.
I do have one, Mayor.
Councilman Rodriguez.
Hey, Eva, do we have other bonds that we have issued out, or no, is this the only ones?
Could you clarify, like right now or previously?
Yes.
Yes, we have issued bonds. We have several bonds that we have issued over the years and refunded over the years.
Okay. But none of them this low?
Low interest, well, the funding that we received from Texas Water Development Board, because it was a direct placement, it was actually a little bit lower. But that's a totally different issue. Going out to the market, I don't know, Joey, do you remember the last bonds we issued?
I was trying to remember.
It
was a few years ago.
Yeah. I think it was actually, we've been pretty lucky. We have hit the market always at the right time. So I think it was a little bit over 3% when we had to go out and actually market our bonds like we did. It was over 3%, I'm pretty sure. And that was the 2016 bonds.
I think it was about 3 and 1/8.
Right.
Yeah.
In
That was good still at
2016
that
was the
time,
last
yeah.
time we issued bonds. We refunded since in 2018, but in 2016, that's the rate we got. We had a whole team of underwriters working. It's almost like on a stock floor. You have a whole team that are watching the market and bidding for you. So we had a really good team trying to get the best price for the city today. And that's what happened.
It's amazing.
We timed the
remember that it
market
was.
correctly. We did
We were
time the
watching that.
market correctly.
Right. I'm wondering, and you can help me, so we don't have any other, so are we paying other bonds right now?
Yes, sir, we are.
Are they at a higher rate than what we have this one at?
Yeah, some of them are at higher rate, but we have been refunding the ones we could. There are certain requirements before you can refund the bond
That's like a refinance.
to get a better rate.
Refinance.
Refund is like a refinance, and
Yeah,
So that's where I was leading to,
You pay a
is
fee.
like, can we, since the rating's so good right now, would it be better for the city to do kind of like a consolidation loan and get bonds that way to, and maybe put the city in a better position? I don't know.
Ava and her team, they're constantly looking for, you cannot finance a bond and then immediately go back and refinance. There's a promissory there to the investor to where you're promising them this rate for a certain period of time. And then at some point, they can be called, which means if the interest rates are lower, we can refinance and give them their money back, and then we finance at a lower rate. But it's not just an arbitrary, we're going to do it today. It has to fit into a window.
so,
I think the gentleman here is wanting to speak. I see.
Behind tab C, the second page, you can see your current outstanding debt service.
There you go.
This sideways page, on the far left-hand side, those are your existing general obligation debt payments. And then the new debt, and then on the right-hand side is the combined total. So these bonds were issued with a 9-year call. So like Councilman Mobley was saying, the bonds have a certain period where the investor's going to get their money. You can't refinance them. So these bonds will be callable in 2029, the ones that we're issuing now. So in 9 years, we can look at refinancing those. Like Ava was saying, they're constantly, when we get to the call date on the outstanding bonds, we'll refund them. And the next call date for your outstanding bonds is going to be 2023. So when we get to that call date, we will look at refinancing those.
And to further your question, if it was advantageous, that's the first thing they would do is look at combining other debt that could be refunded into a package like this, which we've done in other cities over time when it did make sense and when there was that savings to the city.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a fee to refinance, and when you move them around like that, is there an additional fee too, also that goes with that?
Yes, it's like issuing new
Pretty
bonds.
good size, huh? Okay.
So you'll call the old bonds, and then you'll issue new bonds to replace them, and there's cost of issuance associated with that.
Right.
But anytime you refinance bonds, any savings that you get is net of all the cost of issuance. So it'll be quoted in real savings to the city.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And just to add to that, last time we refunded or refinanced was back in 2018, and it was a significant savings for the city. But the financial analyst helps us monitor our outstanding issues, and anytime there is a refunding available, they make a recommendation and we bring it to the council. With that, there's a funny story I want to add to you. I was actually talking to John Martin the other day, and he was telling me that there was a smaller city where he recommended a refinancing or a refunding, and it would have saved the city $3 million. But their finance director said, I'm sorry, I don't have time for this right now, because it takes a lot of work to do the refunding. So John just told her, well, when you have time, let me know, and I'll save the city $3 million.
Wow.
So I thought,
Wow.
That should never be your response.
don't worry, it is not.
Yeah, $3 million or a new finance director, I guess, which one's cheaper?
New finance director, yeah. Thank you. So council, any more questions, concerns on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to make a quick comment.
Councilman Reiner.
I just want to say thank you to Ava and the team and Chris, actually, for working so hard on this. That this is going to be amazing, and the savings in and of itself, we're looking to the future, and we're saving some money in the process. So thank you.
Good. Well, hearing none, no more comments. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the certificate of ordinance authorizing the sale and the assurance of the City of Granbury, Texas combination tax and revenue certificates of obligation series 2020 and approving all matters incident thereto.
So moved.
Have that motion by Councilman Reiner and a second by Councilman Wadley. Council, any more discussion on this item? I'm going to take a record vote. Councilman Corrigan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Rodriguez, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Wadley?
Aye.
I'm aye.
Aye.
Councilman Reiner?
Aye.
That passes. Council, are there any more discussion? Hearing none, the special meeting is now closed.